Hey, we got some tips and tools we're gonna look at today. What we're working on for this week, we don't have a blog post. We're working on this week, we're working on a podcast. We have one more blog post, however, that'll give us enough that we'll be putting together an ebook the following week. So we're gonna talk about that next week, though. I have some pre-recorded guest speakers. We don't watch them in class. They're all about 45 minutes-ish long, so there's something to do when you find the right time to watch outside of class. The assignment for it is a one-page, very specific double space Times New Roman 12-point font, so you don't have to ask. So there you go. Please don't do wingdings. I haven't been able to interpret those ever. It's really hard for me. Okay, Kane, do you have a tip and tool for us? Awesome. Ashley is next week. Madison, you're the 29th, which you'll be here, right? On the 29th? Just not next week. Okay. And Alyssa on the 6th. Right after the 4th of July weekend, we'll all be loopy from celebrating. And then Cassie, you are our pièce de résistance. We expect nothing less than awesomeness, because you'll have had all of the people go before you, taking all the good ones. So you look like whatever you can find. So I'm sorry about that. Okay, drop down here. It's okay. Okay, Premiere Pro. All right, let's see what we've got.
Premiere Pro, and we were just going to be going over the color correction that you can do in this wonderful app. So once you have your video, this looks like a little video game.
Like very suspicious game.
A little video of me outside, maybe here, downtown or expert. The cool thing is you can put a little film over it. I already have a few presets for it, but I'm just going to show you guys how to work it. So right here you have your midtones, your highlights, your shadows, obviously your midtones. So like the higher you go, the harder the image gets, the lower you go, lower the image gets. Then you have your shadows. If you want your shadows not really be present, obviously you would put it up there and you get kind of a filmy look on that. Looks kind of cool. But for this purpose, we want our shadows to be a little darker. And then your highlights are on this tab. Right, so these are your highlights. It's kind of like, I think if you've ever worked Lightroom before, it's kind of the similar presets. Then you have your curves right here, your RGB curves. Now this is very, very, very strong if you want to get kind of the film a certain way. What you want to do is you want to pull it up, and that just lifts all of the tones of that color up, or you can pull it down. It can just make it very kind of sketchy, right? Then you have your red tones, and so if you really want the color red to pop up, just really just lighten it up. Kind of really don't like that. You have your greens, right? You have your color wheel match. You already went over that. So change it. It's pretty sick. Also in the color wheel, I want to have a certain color really stand out. I'll move it over a little bit more. So you got a little red, pink, pinkish vibes. Right. Obviously, when working Premiere, Control Z is your favorite button because that means you can undo anything you've done. I'm just gonna spam Control Z. So we have done. So yeah, guys, there it goes.
Right. And one holy grail rule of video production, remember, if you don't get it, if you can't see it in your video, no map of color correction will fix that, right? It's too dark, too light. So, but if you at least can see, you can tweak it, right? Okay, good stuff. Okay, next. Let's do some review. So let's see, who are we missing today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're missing 2 people, groups.
And
Okay, yeah. Okay. So let me grab your attention on this one. So I discovered one thing actually that was not Mailchimp, it's actually a Facebook issue. So sometimes some of you, if you start a Facebook page just for this class, Facebook has a little bit of issue, they're a little narcissistic. They don't like people reading Facebook. So if you put a link to your blog, sometimes they'll mark it as spam and actually take down your post. So we had a couple of people in my other class do that. So I researched it and I figured out what the issue, and one solution, I don't know if it's, foolproof, but notice I put in the broken Facebook icon because they're wrong. So there's link shorteners. You know what link shortener is? So you just put in the full link, tiny URLs are good, it's freebie, and it will just give you a shortened link for it. It's especially nice. It came out like if you're using Twitter and they have, the 200 characters, you got a web link that's, 100 characters long, you just wasted a lot of space. So what I found, I haven't experienced this personally because the Facebook page I've had for a long time, so I've never experienced them taking my stuff down, but several students have. So if you take something like tiny URL, put your web address for your blog post in here, it's going to give you a shortened web address, and put that in your Facebook post, then hopefully it won't mark it as spam and it will actually function in tiny URL. So if you've run into that, give this a shot. Doesn't sound like any of you have run into that, but maybe as a preventive measure, if your Facebook that you're using for this class has been around for a while and it's got other connections, they don't seem to punish it as much. It's typically more on a newer Facebook. So anyway, and these are kind of handy. So just a little bit about shorteners like this one. So this one, you don't have to get an account. You can just put one in. If you make an account, what it does, it'll actually store your links. So if you make your link to your blog post, you can just go here and go back and get the same shortened link over and over again. If you don't make an account, it'll create a new one every time that you put one in. And the other one I like is Bitly, B-I-T-L-Y. You have to sign up for that one. One thing I like about that one, it also tracks. So if somebody clicks on your blog post, on your Facebook post, it'll actually track that for you as well. So it's just some extra stuff that you can help out with. Anyway, so just thought I'd bring that to your attention. If you run into that and it's locking you out, what it does, it just marks your post and takes it down, so nothing you can do about it. Okay, all right, so let's do this. You're still in groups, so sorry, man, so we keep picking on you. So this you can't do because Mailchimp hates you apparently, but what I like to do is this. I've got a site up here, and you can do this one. If you look on your desktop there on our class today, you'll see a link to my subscription. So if you go there, I'll have you subscribe to my newsletter, and then we'll pull up Mailchimp and see what do we get. So there's a link to it right in here. And then after we do that, I will have you link to each other's. So there you see a link at dmcc320weebly.com. Yeah, that's right. Oops, DMCC.
Are we subscribing to it?
Yeah, go ahead and subscribe to it. So the newsletter subscription, it just has a click to subscribe, and then it takes you here, and it's got a name and an address. It's okay, I won't sell your information. At least that's what I'm telling you now, but it might later. I can make money off it. And so the goal is, once you get signed up, we're going to check out and see what we've got. So when you subscribe, it should, then here's the next step that I'll take. Once you subscribe, you're going to go ahead. So the way this works, if you've created a newsletter, until you publish it, and people are subscribed, it won't send it out to you, right? So if you've already published it and I subscribe after that, it's not going to send you a newsletter. You're going to have to push it out again. Okay. So this is how that works. Also, I've got a couple of classes worth of stuff here. So let me go back to my campaigns and to my newsletter. Okay, so here's a newsletter that I've already sent out. So if I want to send it out again, and if you've already published your newsletter, then just go over here to the side and replicate it. It'll bring it, make it brand new. It's exactly the same, but you can resend it out again. So I'm just going to keep it all the same. Looks great. If I hit send, once you subscribed, it should go to your inbox. So this is our test to see. Some of you, it'll go to your spam, just because that's the way it goes. Others of you, it will show up. So whatever email that you use to subscribe, check it and see if it comes to your inbox. And if it doesn't come within a few seconds, check your spam. We'll see how it did. Okay, let's talk about podcast for a minute. So I got a couple questions for you and just some stats, just to help us out. So podcasting continues to grow. I had a little bit dip last year, but then it popped right back up. I think it was a post-COVID dip because a lot of people listen to post podcasts when they had no other things to do. So 57% of the US population have listened to a podcast. That's up from 2020. This was 2021 stats. We don't have 22 sets because we're only in June, right? So you don't know. Here's a couple. 41% of those surveyed listened to a podcast in the last month. 28 listened in the last week. So about a third of the population. And people 12 to 34, 56% are monthly podcast listeners. So they listen to a podcast at least once a month. This one's just going to show you. So episodes versus shows. So in other words, you have a show and you have multiple episodes. So people will listen to approximately 8 podcast episodes in the last week. And that's 5 podcast shows. In other words, they're listening to multiple episodes of the same show, like a cold case of crime podcast. Okay. So it's a survey of 1,500 people, 12 and older, and that's where this information came from. So here's a couple other demographics. You can see the age breakdown. So a little older demographic, a little bit less inclined. Skews a little bit male to female. I'm not sure why, because every time I ask, then all the women subscribe to a crime podcast. All the countries don't. I don't know what it is. Salary, average podcast listener makes about 10 grand more than the average American salary. So that's good, I guess, right? If you want a target audience, it makes a little bit more. Okay, question I have for you. Do you listen to podcasts? Give me a yes or no. Let's see what we got from our class as far as podcast listening. Okay, we're breaking down 50-50. Let's see. Cassie, Kane, Madison, Williams. So there we go. Seeing how we've got 2 guys and the rest are women, so it's unfair skewed. So we're not going to get the 56-46, but Cassie, you're right up on top. What do you listen to?
I listen to like a murder podcast.
Oh, murder.
Like a crime show podcast.
Crime shows. Okay, Madison, how about you?
Same thing, right?
Okay. Lots of crime. I'm not sure what's up with that. All the women seem to be enthralled with crime podcasts again. Can't figure that out. That's okay. Kane, do you listen to crime too?
No, I don't. I listen to I think celebrities podcast. They just bring on celebrities. Yeah.
Okay, see what's going on.
Sick.
Okay. And our nose, Ashley, Alyssa, Mary, no podcast ever. Is it? Just every once in a while, but it's not something you do on a regular basis. Okay. Well, that brings us to our next question. So if you do, how frequently? And if the same thing, if it's like occasionally, every once in a while, you pull it up. Let's see what our numbers are in this one.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of nevers. Never, says Allison Mary. I'm sorry. It's okay. This is not a self-help group. It's okay if you never listen to them. We still like you. Occasionally, a few times a month, weekly, and daily. Chelsea's our daily listener. Chelsea, what's your daily podcast?
True crime.
True crime. Learning how to, rob stores and things. Yeah, they're really popular. It's funny. I have a neighbor. She's just this small, sweet lady. And it's like, yeah, I was to true crime. Okay, so why do you listen, or why would you listen if you currently don't? What are some reasons that you do listen? Just got to give it a feel for what that is. And we'll let you type in here. Oh, sorry. Totally messed that up. My mouse went wild. Rogue mouse. We're back. Okay, it's passing time. Entertainment, tea. You like tea? I'm just kidding. The host of the podcast you like, okay. Help me with your writing. Sleep because they're boring. Very nice word. So listen to them when the drone of that voice going on and on and on. Short subject. Okay, sometimes depends on the length. Right now, most of the podcasts listen to on a regular basis, which probably be almost every other day. I follow some to help me supplement. Come follow me because there's a couple that I really like. So what I like that that gets a little bit more into the guys talks about the Hebrew and all that kind of stuff, which I find to be kind of interesting. My wife doesn't like it because she doesn't want to get that. She likes the ones that are a little bit more poignant. Okay. The subject entertaining, valuable, helps you go to sleep again. Rewriting, the host likes the host, entertainment, and like to have tea with them, past time. And I know there's people talk over other people, so that's good. That is true. I've come to really detest cable news because they just have people yelling at each other all the time. Okay, so one last one, I'll just actually type it in. Where do you listen to podcast? Is it in cars, in bed, as you're walking? Where's the most prime time where you listen to podcasts? At work, delete. Walking, when you're in bed, work. Yeah, what we find, and you probably say the same thing, is that most people are doing a little bit of multitasking. It's not something where you're sitting staring at the wall listening intently to the podcast. It's not the only thing you're doing, unless you're trying to sleep. Then you're listening intently until you take a nap. Okay. All right. Okay, let's talk about this assignment. So 2 parts. We're gonna make a podcast, and the first part, what doesn't really work, and the people have done this, and I turn on the mic, hit record, and we got nothing to say. Right? It's like, what you talking about? So don't do that. Okay, so we're gonna put together a outline that we can work from. And we're looking for this one. It's a 5 to 8 minute podcast. Now here's the parameters of it. It's a demo podcast. In other words, if you did a full one, maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 60 minutes, whatever. But for us, act as if, okay, I'm pitching this idea to someone, and here's what it would be like if we're going to do an ongoing podcast or whatever the next many years. So you got to truncate it. You're going to make 5 to 8 minutes that would demonstrate what it would be like if you did an ongoing podcast. Okay. So keep it within those parameters. A couple reasons. It's just easier to do, and it's also easier for you to listen to if they're not all 30 minutes long. And then I fast forward through really quickly, and then it's not so much fun. Okay, so here's kind of an outline of a made-up podcast. So here's a rough script. Typically, I suggest for your open is kind of scripted out, so you're not stumbling through the open. So this is my big podcast, the Cool Cats podcast with Tom Maltese and Timothy Siam. So here's what I would read. A great show for you today. We're going to tips, blah, 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 blah. So the open and a little music, word for word. Tip to the wise, don't make a music jingle at the open of your podcast. It goes for like 30 seconds. Nothing annoys me greater than trying to get to the podcast and that open keeps going and going. It's like 5 seconds is good. Let's see what I can find. Okay, then as you're putting your rough script again, here's the sound effect. I feel dial-up modem sound. So these are the topics. So in this podcast, the Cool Cats podcast, me and my buddy Tommy Siam, we're going to talk about these topics. So we've got a list out, and we kind of rehearsed. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about. So we get to that part and say, hey, today we're going to talk about how do you know what pen is pounding, Tom? What do you know about this? And so we're going to go through it. What I've done though is I've set aside, okay, for these 3 topics, we've got whatever, 4 minutes. And so we know how long, so we're not going to stay too long on any one. We're going to talk about those. And I'm talking with an expert about these kind of things. For us, don't go out and hire an expert to be part of your podcast. You can get someone to play the part if you want to, because again, it's a demo, right? So if you're going to be talking about, cool clothes to wear, then Jane, you can get somebody, your daddy to be your expert and she'll tell you about cool cars. You don't have to, but you can.
Okay, it just has to be, if we don't want to have it in segments, it can't just be.
Yeah, so I'm going to show you some segments and show you what I mean by that. So the one thing I don't want you to do is say, hi, it's me. This is the Cool Cats podcast. I'm going to talk to you for the next 5 minutes, blah, 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 blah. We're going to go to sleep. And then he'll be happy. The rest of us be frustrated because we just bored him to death. So that's one of the other things is that unless you're really dynamic or the celebrity, then you're just hanging on every word. One person talking just for an extended period of time typically does just that. It drones us to death. So we don't want to do that. Okay, so here's again, this would be a long sheet, but I cut it up so it fits in the PowerPoint. So next part, I have a little sound effect to break up the segment. Here's segment number 2. Now we're going to talk about new products to maintain your pet. First, it's the Cat-O-Matic, and we'll talk about that. The Fetch and Catch 2000, my favorite, and the Hypno Happy Pet, which has all this litigation against it because the cat's so concrete. So anyway, we talk about those things over sound effect, giving them applause. It's all good. Okay, and then here's segment 3, the training tip of the week. How to get that cat to stop scratching the sofa. So closing remarks, then we thank the guests, the audience, and this is important if you're doing this on a weekly or semi-weekly, whatever. You always want to teach what's coming up because you've already got them to listen to the end. It's like, oh, this is a list there. Next week, we're going to talk about this. So, and that's when we would be consistent. That would come out every Wednesday or every Friday or whatever it is. And then we have a close. Again, close music, don't make it too long. Some podcasts will listen to, it's like half the podcast just to close it up with music. It's like, I'm waiting for something to happen, just don't listen to music. And then if you need a resource, so this one, I put this on my outline. So Timothy was my guest. If there's any audio files that you use that need some credit, some sourcing, put those here, kind of things you need to. Now we're going to use a tool, Anchor FM, which some of you may be familiar with. It actually has music clips, sweepers, sound effects, all built in, so you don't have to credit those if you use that. So we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay, so what we need to do is set up an account on Anchor FM. Now, here's the thing. We have run into this in class. If everybody tries to set one up right now with the IP address, it will start to think it's being spammed. So it'll say you can't set one up right now. So don't suggest setting up one right this minute. Go where you're dispersed, and then it's not going to think it's a problem. So again, 5 to 8 minutes, follows your outline, highlight your topic. We've already done 4 blog posts. You've done a lot of research. Does any of that content work for a podcast? Could you use any of that? Not just reading the blog post, but you've done a lot of research. Can you use some of that information? Okay, so when I say segments, I'm going to give you an example of what that means, but just not one person talking the whole time. You do need to have some music, some sound effects. Well, you use Anchor FM. Anchor FM requires a little bit of cover art and a title. So here's what that looks like. This is settings in Anchor FM. So this would be your podcast name, so whatever it is. So if it's, cool clothes, or it's, zoo animal, zoology, whatever it is, this is going to be the permanent name of the podcast. Then this would be the description of all of the podcasts. But then each podcast episode would have an individual. So it'd be, here's the main podcast. This would be, how to find cool shit and so on. This is what the cover art looks like. It's in a square. So take whatever you've already been using on your Facebook or other, and it's black redesign. It's going to be a square, so make it look like that. So that's your cover art. So that's going to show up anytime your podcast shows up. That's the cover art. Then you'll see that. Okay, and so I'm going to show you an example of what I made just for this class. I use this example, social media marketing podcast. It's what I'm into all the time. We won't check it out now because we're going to run out of time. This one I made to give you an example of what segments are like, kind of what to listen to. So let's check this out. It's the Mass Media Talk podcast. I made this in 2020, so now it's 2 years old. They're making new ones soon.
This is Mass Media Talk with your host, Brian Howard. Hello, welcome to the first episode of Mass Media Talk. This podcast focuses on the mass media from both the perspective of media producers and everyday consumers. I'm your host, Brian Howard. Good to have you with us today. Coming up in today's podcast, we'll have the tip of the day. Are there any great deals out there for entertainment when COVID-19 has us stuck at home all day long? I've got a couple of tips for you. And in the Remember That segment, you've got the chance to identify the theme song from one of the most popular TV shows of all time. In Mass Media Headlines, we'll look at the impact of COVID virus on the media and what to expect for the next few months, as if any of us really know. Let's get to the tip of the day. Tip of the day. Today's tip of the day is all about what we're going to do when we're stuck at home, both for work. Use this extension and you set up a Chrome extension for you through the VidAngel services. They also have some with the Chrome extension.
Okay, you say.
Remember that. Remember That is one of my favorite segments. I've enjoyed mass media for a long time, radio, television, and all the old films. Well, in this case, Remember That we go back in time, sometimes a few years, sometimes a lot of years. And this week, we're going back a lot more years than I've been alive because I never saw this show when it aired originally. but I have seen it many times in syndication, and you're going to get a chance to try to identify what program is this based on the theme song. So give this a listen and see if you know what TV show this is.
Ooh, anybody know what it is? Oh, very good. You are so good.
I think you probably got it. This is I Love Lucy. That was the sitcom on CBS. It ran from 1951 to 1957, 180 half-hour episodes, and it's still on TV today. You can see it as you flip around the dial, or if you look for it in streaming services. A very popular TV show. Who finds Lucille Ball on this week's Remember That? Mass media headlines.
Okay, so you get the idea. So that's what I mean by segments. So it's just not me talking incessantly. It breaks it up a little bit, gives it a little bit of life, maybe a little bit of things to make it a little more fun. So think about within your topic, what could be like a regular segment that we do every week? Is it, the clothing bee of the week? Is it, we're gonna learn about the zoo animal of the week? What is it gonna be? Any particular tip or thing like that? Testimonial of the week from someone who's whatever happens. So again, think of it as a demo. You only have to do one. Obviously, if you want to do more, you could. But if this were ongoing, what would be some ongoing segments that you could do based on your topic over and over? Okay, and this is audio only, so this is a video one. So if you're going to, you can't really demonstrate something visual. So for example, I know people who like photography stuff, so they don't talk about, visual stuff. They talk about different products, different ways of doing things that you can explain without having to see them. That's one of the downfalls. If you're listening on your headset, you can't see somebody doing something. Okay, so move from there. It's down out of the way. Okay, so on the actual assignment, I've got a bunch of tutorials on how to do stuff. Anchor FM works on a smartphone. You probably prefer it on your laptop. It just gives you a little bit more latitude, but it works fine on your cell phone as well. A couple of suggestions when it comes to recording. I'm going to show you a video here. It goes basically over the interface of Anchor FM. Recording, just a couple of things. So if you do have like a headset, like if you're a game or something like that, the main thing the headset helps out with, and it gets the mic a little bit closer to you, but always be careful that you're not breathing through it. That can be nasty. Keep it, if you're using a laptop and using the mic on it, that's okay. Just remember that it's going to record a lot of the noise. This week's kind of terrible. A little hard. It sounds like you're in a cave. Plus we got AC going on. So if you're in your room in your apartment and nobody's playing and screaming outside, it'll probably be fine. Cross roads not a good place. The rule of thumb is distance from a mic is usually about, you hang loose about this. That's about how far you should be away. But just record and see what it sounds like. You get popping peas or that kind of thing. The main thing I'm worried about is it easy to hear? Is it not distracting? So when I'm listening to it, is there a bunch of background noise or is it hard to hear you? Are you down on the top of it? Hey, so the way Anchor FM works is really cool. I'm going to play this demo over in about 6 minutes or so, I think. But I just go over the basic interface. Once you look at it, you can go through the tutorial. You'll crank this out in no time. It's a pretty easy tool to use. I've used some other ones in the past, but this one just makes it really easy for the user. So you don't have to do a whole lot of extra work outside of just this tool.
Once you've set up an Anchor FM account, then you'll need to create episodes for your podcast. So let's go ahead and create a new episode and show you how to use Anchor FM. You can do everything here for the recording. You can do it either on your iPad or smartphone or on your laptop. There's another tutorial that shows you how to do it on your phone. So let me go through how to do it on your desktop computer. So once you get into your Anchor FM account, then up on the top, you'll see a new episode. So click on new episode and you'll see we have record, messages, library, and transitions. If you haven't recorded anything before, there won't be anything in your library, and messages are horrible when someone else has given you a message from one of your listeners. So you probably don't have anything there as well. So record is what we're going to worry about in transitions. So first, let me go to transitions. Here are some transitions that you can use, and they're designed to be short. You'll see 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds, and they sound like this. those are things you can use in between segments. So I like Ally. So I use that in my podcast. So I'm going to go ahead and click on record. And you're going to pick whatever microphone you're using, and that's my headset right now. Let me go ahead and record. All right, so now I'm recording for my first podcast on Anchor.fm, and you're going to like it a lot, I hope, and hopefully this will be a good example for you. Okay, I'm going to hit stop recording. And it's processing, and once it gets stopped, I can go ahead and change the name so it's not just a date and time, which is a little bit, annoying if that's all you've got. Now, you notice while that one is processing, you'll see all these other clips that are in here. Then we're now in the library, and these are things that I've recorded and used before. So let's go ahead and listen to see how that recorded. All right, now we're recording the first podcast on YouTube. You're going to like it a lot, I hope. All right, all right, now I'm recording from the first podcast on YouTube. Okay, I got an email just as I was listening to them. I thought maybe that recorded into the podcast, but it didn't. So if you like it, great. If you don't like it, you can go over here and delete it permanently. You can download it if you want to, but now you have it here. So let's see how this works. This is great. So over here on the right is where you drag your files. So say I want to start with a little music. So let me start with some lovely music from 96 West. Okay, so I'm going to hit and click the plus button, and it drops over here. So that's the first thing people are going to hear. Now I'm going to go back to my library, and let's drop in this audio that I just recorded. So it's going to go right here in order. Now, if you don't like the order of things, you can drag and drop them and move them around. Okay. Now down here at the bottom, you can preview your episode. Notice right now it's only 23 seconds long. So let's go ahead and listen to what we've got so far. Let me rearrange this, by the way. Let's put music first. Music first and the voiceover. All right, now I'm recording for my first podcast on YouTube. You're going to like it a lot, I hope. And hopefully this will be successful for you. Okay, I'm going to hit stop recording. Okay, there you go. So you have those two in order, and you can see as you move down through what you can do. Go to your library as you record things. You can record more. Library will have everything that you've recorded in the past. Now, as I said before, here's this name that's June 10th, 2020 at 408. So we're going to go in here and change that. And that's going to be my sample podcast voiceover. Okay, then my voiceover, we'll make that all one word. There we go. Okay, I changed it, so there it is. And here you'll see I've created other podcasts in the past. So if those people want to hear them and see what they're like, I'm going to preview them. So again, if you like it, you can go ahead and add it in. And those here, you can add background music. So let's do that while I'm at it. Let's go ahead and click here. And there's some tracks that are here for you that you can use. Let's do something melancholy. Ooh, that's a little too melancholy. All right, that's kind of funky. Let's add that. Okay, so we'll turn it down a little bit. Let's preview with our audio. All right, now I'm recording for my first podcast on YouTube. You're going to like it a lot, I hope. Okay, so let's apply it. So now let's do this. If you don't want this music to begin with, we're going to go ahead and remove this from the episode, and let's see what we get. All right, now I'm recording for my first podcast on YouTube. You're going to like it a lot, I hope. And hopefully this will be successful. Okay, I'm going to hit stop recording. So isn't that cool that auto ducks for you, so the music comes in and then drops down where your voice comes in? Very nice. So when you're all done, you're going to save those changes, and then we'll take you through the steps through to how to do that. So let's go ahead and save this episode. Then we're going to give it a title. So this is going to be my test episode. And then you'll need to put a description. Obviously, your description should be something descriptive. I know what's in that episode. Those things you can do to customize it. You can do a season number, season episode, et cetera, put this kind of stuff in. And then, of course, keep your episode art. Once you're done, I'm going to save this down as a draft. If I published it, it would go ahead and be public. So I want to save it now. And then I'm going to go back and look at some episodes. So once you've published it, I'll show you an episode that I've already done. All right, here's the episode that in the past, here's 2 past episodes. This is one that's been fully published. So let me click on this one, Mass Media Talk episode number 1. And then you'll see, here it is, and what it would look like for you. Now down here are some ways to share it. So when you want to share your link on Canvas, go ahead and click on this copy link, and that will be a link that'll take you right to it. I'm going to open up a new browser window and paste that link in, and you'll see what it looks like. There it is, you go right to it, and you'll be able to play it from here. So here's the play button. This is Mass Media Talk. There you go. So you should be able to copy and paste that right into Canvas. So those are the steps you go through to create a podcast using Anchor FM. It's very easy. Hardest part, of course, is writing out your outline and deciding which music clips and other things to use. All right, hope that helps you as you're creating your first podcast on it.
Hopefully that helps. Pretty easy to use. Again, that's why I like it. You set it up. If you're really pro, you probably record some stuff outside with an audio tool and import it in. But this works really well, so you don't have to do that. It makes your work and life a little bit easier. So let's just go here, talk about what we got left. We just got a couple minutes left, so I want to make sure we're up to date on what's up we got going this week. So this week, there's no blog post. There is a LinkedIn learning assignment. It's content marketing, how to podcast. So it's a short lesson. It's got a quiz associated with it. The podcast outline is just like it sounds. I've got a template if you just want to follow it, something similar. So this is an outline. It's your podcast name. Here's your topic. Intro music. If you use the tracks from Anchor FM, just put the name of the track. That's perfectly fine. Anchor FM has tons of tracks. You can use anything in there. You don't have to pull anything in on your own, unless you want to. If you want to go find another track, just make sure that it's something that you have the rights to use, and just credit it. And then I've just got some other basics. You can follow that template as you go through. You can see here's the Cool Cat podcast, and you can see how that went. Okay, so that's that one. And then definitely do your outline first. And the outline is just meant to be a good outline so you know what you're doing as you go through, so you get lost. This is the actual instruction for the podcast, and it's got some directions. It's got the same information here as far as tutorials and that kind of thing. Here's the one we just watched. So when you turn it in, all you got to do is it's in a discussion board format. Copy and paste the link to your podcast, and then you can go listen to everybody else's and then just do your own as well. And so they're a little bit long. We listen to some in class, but 5 minutes, and then we do everybody's. And then we're 60, 70 minutes in. So we'll do the whole thing. And the last bit here is a speaker summary. So we're going to do about 3, maybe 4 of these. So I've had some guest speakers come because I have multiple sections. Typically, I've recorded some, and this semester I don't have anybody live, but I try to keep them updated as we go. So this is Trina Boyce. I met her through the LDS MPA, the Media Publishers and Arts Association. So the assignment for this is listen to it, take some notes, turn in a paper, 12-point Times New Roman, 1 page. Don't do this. I have this every once in a while. Mid-sentence, I get to the bottom of the page and you've done a page and then you quit writing. So that's when finish the sentence. It's okay if you go over a couple of words. So don't worry about it. And then next week we'll just talk about it for a few minutes. All these people have some great insights and points into different areas of content marketing and social media marketing, that kind of thing. So anyway, those are our assignments for this week. So the biggie is the podcast. So I'm looking forward to hearing. Yeah, guys, have any questions on the assignments for this week?